In yesterday's video, I talked about the liabilities in the chart for Boris Johnson. Now keep in mind, we have a verified time for Johnson, and therefore the correlations that are there become a lot more accurate than without a time. For example, the Neptune-Mercury square, which is a really major aspect, is known to come from a planet that at birth is involved in an 8th house opposition, which makes it particularly dangerous, and then it transits over, goes to the 6th house of health, squares Mercury, and so then we have a dicey situation. Now, something I didn't mention is perhaps the most obvious thing of all, which is Gemini is the sign of the lungs. It also connects to the shoulders, the arms, but the lungs are absolutely Gemini ruled. Sometimes people know this about signs and they take it for granted, don't give it a lot of importance. Aries is the head, Taurus is the throat, Pisces the feet, and Capricorn the knees, and so on. Turns out these correlations are remarkably accurate and really point to what is happening in terms of body injuries and the like. Now, how does this relate to Mike Pence? Well, Mike Pence, it turns out, is also a Gemini, like Boris, and we don't have a time in his case, so this is just showing the planets in their daily positions, which are going to be mostly accurate, maybe a few portions of a degree off here and there. The moon is shown just at the very end of Gemini, but this is for noon, and so if we want to know the range, it's shown here. It could be anywhere from 23.5 degrees Gemini to 5 3/4 degrees Cancer. And so he could have an opposition to Saturn if he's born late in the day. If not, then he'll have the moon in Gemini all the way up to about 12:30 p.m. or so. The key thing, though, is that you notice that in addition to being a Gemini, like Boris Johnson, he has planets in the 20-degree range. In Boris's case, it's Mercury. His case, it's also Mercury, right? 21 3/4. And so what this tells us is that the Neptune station that is due to happen around the summer solstice is quite challenging because Neptune is a slow mover. You can see it started here at birth. It's come around that far. And it'll be on this square during 2020 and 2021, with even a slight remnant or some remnants in 2022 as well. Now the thing is, much like how in Boris' case, Neptune is a planet that threatens because it opposes an 8th house planet at birth. In this case, in Pence's case, could potentially be even worse because his Neptune squares Venus and Mars at birth, two of the personal planets. And of course, we don't know where this falls in terms of the sign order. But what we do know is that the Neptune is challenging, so this is definitely going to challenge. Now you might say, well, it's obvious he's already challenged. We know that he's having a hard time. He's having to deal with this pandemic. Sure. But there's probably more to it than that. This is telling us that as we head toward the summer months, probably by May already, but certainly June, July, there's big pressure on this Mercury here. Now, it could turn out that maybe he gets sick if his chart shows it through the positioning of these squares and so on. But if he can avoid that, if he doesn't have the type of ascendant that would catch that kind of outcome, then it'll likely show up as Neptune in a square being very problematic for popularity. Neptune, when it trines, will usually help you to gain popularity. When it squares, your popularity drops. Now, another possibility with Pence is this rumor that has been circulating around the idea that Trump may try to get rid of him to instead put in a woman as VP, because he knows that Biden, the likely Democratic nominee, is going to pick a woman, and Trump's standing with women is absolutely awful. So he may figure out that the way to do it is to get rid of Pence and put in a woman. If that were to happen, then probably we would know sometime in the summer, and it would correlate with an aspect like this. Of course, even if it doesn't, then it'll be some other loss of popularity. Bottom line, this is not an easy or helpful square to be under during this period of time, or for that matter, any period of time.